The engine of Emily Carter's sleek black Porsche 911 roared as she floored the gas, the Charlotte skyline shrinking in her rearview mirror. Her knuckles whitened on the wheel, her jaw clenched so tight it ached. Behind her, the sprawling glass and steel mansion that had been her prison for 28 years burned, not with flames, but with the weight of a single black envelope she'd left on her father's mahogany dining table. That envelope held a truth so sharp it could carve the Harper family empire to ribbons. She didn't look back, not once. The city lights blurred into streaks as she pushed the car past 90 on I-77, the hum of the engine drowning out the memories clawing at her mind. Her father, William Harper, tech titan of the Carolinas, had built his fortune on innovation and ruthlessness. His face was plastered on Charlotte's billboards, his name synonymous with power. But to Emily, he was a shadow that loomed over her life, dimming every spark she dared to kindle. Tonight, she'd finally struck the match. "Where are you headed, Em?" she muttered to herself, her voice low, raw. The question hung unanswered in the dark cabin of the car. She didn't know. All she knew was that she was done. Done with the silence, the dismissal, the suffocating weight of being the invisible Harper. The black envelope would do the talking now. Its contents. A secret she'd uncovered 3 months ago, buried in encrypted files on her father's. A secret that could topple his empire and rewrite their family's story. 20 years earlier, in a sprawling colonial house in Charlotte's Myers Park, 8-year-old Emily Harper sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, surrounded by crayons and construction paper. Her small hands trembled as she glued a poem onto a handmade Father's Day card. "Daddy, you're my hero, even if I'm small." The words were shaky, written in her best cursive. She'd spent hours on it, her tongue poking out in concentration, hoping this time he'd see her. Downstairs, the Harper dining room buzzed with Sunday brunch chaos. William Harper, then 40, sat at the head of the table, his broad shoulders filling out a tailored blazer. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scanned a Wall Street Journal while his sons, Ethan and Noah, bickered over the last pancake. Ethan, 16, all charm and ambition, was pitching his latest idea, a car wash business he swore would make bank. Noah, 10, gangly and loud, was reenacting a touchdown he'd scored at Pee-wee football. Sarah, their mother, flitted between the kitchen and table, her smile tight, her hands wringing a dish towel. Emily clutched her card, her heart hammering as she approached her father. "Daddy?" Her voice was a whisper, barely cutting through the noise. William didn't look up. "What, Emily?" I made you something." She held out the card, her arms trembling. He glanced at it for half a second, his lips twitching in what might have been a grimace. "That's nice, kid." He set it aside, unopened, and turned to Ethan. "You're telling me you've got a business plan. Let's hear it." Emily stood frozen, the card still in her outstretched hands. Noah snickered, grabbing a $5.00 mug he'd bought at Walgreens from the table. "Yo, Dad, check this out. World's best dad. Cool, right?" William's face split into a grin. He stood, pulling Noah into a bear hug. "That's my boy, look at this. Classy." The room erupted in laughter, Ethan clapping Noah on the back. Sarah offered Emily a quick apologetic hug, but it was cold comfort. Emily slipped upstairs, her card left on the table, already forgotten. By 14, Emily had learned to swallow her hurt like bitter medicine. The Harper household revolved around Ethan and Noah, the Golden Sons. Ethan, now 22, was a junior at Duke, his charisma landing him internships at tech startups across Raleigh. Noah, 16, was Charlotte Latin School's star quarterback, his games drawing crowds and William's undivided attention. Emily, The middle child was a ghost in her own home. Her sketches, vivid, haunting drawings of Charlotte's skyline or imaginary worlds, piled up in her room, unseen. Her short stories, typed on a second-hand laptop, stayed locked in password-protected folders. At the dinner table, the air was thick with Ethan's latest pitch for a real estate app and Noah's play-by-play of his last game. Emily pushed peas around her plate. Her stomach knotted. She'd aced her algebra test that day, earning a rare compliment from her teacher, but she knew better than to bring it up. "Dad," she ventured once, her voice barely audible. "I was thinking maybe I could take an art class. There's one at the community center. It's only $20. William snorted, not looking up from his steak. "Art? You'll quit in a week, like that piano nonsense. Focus on something useful, Emily." Noah smirked. "Yeah, stick to coloring books." Ethan, ever the diplomat, chuckled. "She's fine, Dad. Let her do her thing." But William's eyes were already back on Noah. "You're starting against Providence High next week, right? I'm clearing my schedule. We're getting you that new gear you wanted." Emily's fork clattered to her plate. She excused herself, her mother's soft, honey," trailing after her. Upstairs, she locked her door and opened her sketchbook, her pencil slashing across the page. The drawing that emerged was dark, a crumbling mansion, flames licking at its edges, a lone figure standing in the ashes. Her. Why doesn't he care? She wondered, her chest tight. Was it deliberate, this erasure of her? Or was William so blinded by his sons that he didn't even see her fading? The question gnawed at her, unanswered. At 16, Emily's anger had hardened into resolve. She threw herself into school, her straight-A report cards a quiet rebellion. When she presented one to her father, he gave a curt nod. "Good, keep it up." That same night, Noah brought home a C+ in history, and William took the family to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse to celebrate his effort. Emily stayed home, claiming a headache. She started building something in secret, something her family couldn't touch. On her laptop, she taught herself to code, watching YouTube tutorials late into the night. She wrote scripts, for fun, small programs that organized her sketches or tracked her savings from babysitting gigs. It was hers, a world where she wasn't invisible. At 18, Emily won a full scholarship to UNC Charlotte's computer science program. She'd applied in secret, forging her father's signature on the forms. The award ceremony was held in a packed auditorium, her name called to thunderous applause. She scanned the crowd for her family, her heart sinking when she saw only strangers. William was at Noah's Clemson recruitment weekend. Ethan's community college acceptance had warranted a backyard barbecue with half of Myers Park invited. Emily's milestone? A text from her mother. "So proud, honey. Dad's tied up." She moved into a dorm that fall, her possessions fitting into 2 duffel bags. The distance from her family felt like oxygen after years of suffocating. She changed her phone number, telling only her mother. The Harper name, with all its weight, began to feel like a chain she could break. By 22, Emily was a senior, her life a blur of late-night coding and part-time jobs. Barista shifts at Starbucks, freelance graphic design for local shops. She'd saved enough to rent a closet-sized apartment in Noda, Charlotte's artsy neighborhood, its walls plastered with her sketches. Her big project, ConnectSphere, was born in that cramped space. It was a mobile app, a platform for small businesses to connect with local customers. She'd coded every line herself, pouring her frustration, her dreams, her defiance into it. ConnectSphere launched quietly, gaining a few hundred users in its first month. Emily celebrated alone with a $3.00 bottle of wine, toasting her reflection in a cracked mirror. Her family didn't know. She hadn't spoken to her father in a year, and her brother's texts were sporadic, usually asking for favors. Sarah called weekly, but her voice was always strained, as if she feared saying too much. Then the threats came. Anonymous emails, their tone icy. Shut down ConnectSphere or we'll bury you. A rival tech firm she suspected may be one of her father's competitors, sniffing out her app's potential. She traced the emails to a dummy server but hit a dead end. Fear prickled her spine, but she ignored it. ConnectSphere was hers. No one would take it. How did she afford that car? The question would have baffled anyone who saw her pull into a gas station in the Porsche, its sleek lines out of place next to her thrift store jeans. The truth was buried in late-night deals, a side hustle she'd never admit to her family. She'd started selling custom code to startups, small scripts that streamlined their operations. One client, a shady crypto bro, paid her in Bitcoin. Enough to buy the car outright when the market spiked. It was her secret, her middle finger to the world that had overlooked her. At 25, Emily Carter, not Harper, she'd legally changed it, stood at the helm of ConnectSphere, now with 10,000 users and a team of 5 misfits working out of a co-working space in the South End. The app was a lifeline for Charlotte's small businesses, from taco trucks to boutique gyms. She'd pitched to local investors, her quiet confidence disarming their skepticism. A few wrote checks, enough to keep the lights on. But the threats hadn't stopped. They'd escalated. Hacked user accounts, smear posts on X claiming ConnectSphere was a scam. Emily's team worked around the clock to patch vulnerabilities, but she felt the noose tightening. Someone wanted her to fail. Was it her father's enemies? Or, her breath caught at the thought, her father himself? She pushed the idea away, but it lingered. 3 months ago, she'd found the key to her revenge. Digging through public records for a ConnectSphere feature, she'd stumbled on a lead, a shell company tied to her father's firm. Curiosity drove her to hack his private server, a risky move she justified as research. What she found was a black envelope's worth of dynamite, proof of Williams' under-the-table deals, siphoning millions from his company to offshore accounts. It was enough to ruin him. Now, at 28, Emily sped through the night, the black envelope left behind like a ticking bomb. She'd written one line on the note inside. "You built an empire on lies. I'm tearing it down." Her phone buzzed. Her mother, probably, or maybe Ethan, sniffing out trouble. She let it go to voicemail. The road stretched ahead, endless and uncertain. ConnectSphere was her lifeline, but the threats were closing in. The rival firm had sent a new message that morning. "We know where you live." Her apartment was no longer safe. She'd packed a bag, her laptop, and a single sketch, her family's mansion burning. Where was she going? She didn't know. Maybe Raleigh, to disappear into the tech scene, maybe further, to Silicon Valley or New York, where she could rebuild. All she knew was that the Harper name was ash behind her, and Emily Carter was just beginning to rise. Her phone buzzed again. This time she glanced at the screen, a text from an unknown number. "You can't run forever, Emily. We're watching." Her foot pressed harder on the gas. The Porsche roared into the night, carrying her toward a future she'd have to fight for. One secret, one code, 1 mile at a time. The black Tesla Model S glided through Charlotte's tree-lined streets, its electric hum a stark contrast to the chaos Emily Carter had just unleashed. Her heart pounded, not with fear but with a strange electric thrill. The black envelope she'd left on her father's table at the Father's Day barbecue had done its work. William Harper, tech titan, was no longer the untouchable king of Charlotte's skyline. His empire, Harper Innovations, was hers now. acquired in a silent, surgical strike through ConnectSphere's rising might. She was his boss. The thought made her lips curve into a smile, sharp as a blade. But victory was a fleeting guest. As she merged onto I-77, her rearview mirror caught a flicker of headlights. Too close, too aggressive. The same black SUV that had tailed her earlier, nearly forcing her off the road on her way to the barbecue, was back. Its grille loomed like a predator's maw, weaving through traffic to keep pace. Emily's grip tightened on the wheel. "They're not done with me," her pulse quickened. But she kept her speed steady, her mind racing through possibilities. Was this Williams' doing? His allies? Or the shadowy rival firm that had been hounding ConnectSphere for months? She didn't have time to guess. The SUV surged forward, its bumper kissing her Tesla's rear. A jolt rocked her forward, the seatbelt biting into her chest. "Not today," she hissed, flooring the accelerator. The Tesla shot forward, its instant torque leaving the SUV in the dust. She wove through cars, her eyes flicking between the road and the mirror. The SUV fell back but didn't vanish. It was still there, a dark promise of trouble. Emily's phone buzzed in the console, but she ignored it. Her focus was survival. She took a sharp exit toward uptown Charlotte, the city's neon-lit heart, hoping to lose her pursuer in the maze of one-way streets. The SUV followed, relentless. Her mind flashed to the threats she'd ignored. The hacked servers, the anonymous emails, the whispers of sabotage. This wasn't just a tale. This was a hunt. Days earlier, ConnectSphere had teetered on the brink of collapse. A cyber attack had slammed their servers, a digital tsunami that flooded their database with junk code and locked out half their users. It struck at the worst possible moment. 48 hours before Emily's biggest pitch to Venture South, a powerhouse VC firm that could catapult ConnectSphere into the big leagues. Emily and her team, 5 scrappy coders she'd handpicked from Charlotte's tech underbelly, had worked around the clock in their South End co-working space, a converted warehouse with exposed brick and flickering fluorescent lights. We're losing users," Kriya, her lead developer, had shouted, her eyes bloodshot as she typed furiously. The server room smelled of burnt coffee and desperation. "They're hitting us with a DDoS and something nastier, custom malware maybe." Emily, sleeves rolled up, her hair a messy bun, had stared at the terminal, lines of code blurring before her eyes. Trace the source. Now. Her voice was calm, but her stomach churned. This wasn't random. The timing was too perfect. Marcus, their cybersecurity guy, a former hacker with a neck tattoo and a chip on his shoulder, had growled. "It's coming from a ghost server. Eastern Europe, maybe. But the signature, it's got teeth. Someone with deep pockets." They'd fought for 2 days, patching holes, rewriting code, and rerouting traffic. Emily barely slept, fueled by Red Bull and sheer will. Her team followed her lead, their loyalty unshakable. They knew her story, the invisible daughter who'd built ConnectSphere from nothing. They'd seen her take calls from investors while dodging threats, her voice never wavering. To them, she wasn't just a boss. She was a force. At 4 a.m. on the day of the pitch, Priya had slammed her laptop shut. "We're back online." Barely. The team cheered, collapsing into chairs, but Emily's eyes were on her phone. A new email had arrived, anonymous. "You won't make it to the pitch. Step back, or we'll burn you down." She'd deleted it, her jaw tight. "We're not stepping back." The pitch at Venture South's sleek uptown office had been a gamble. Emily, in a borrowed blazer and her thrift store boots, had faced a room of suits who'd underestimated her from the moment she walked in. She'd laid out ConnectSphere's vision, a platform that didn't just connect small businesses to customers but empowered communities, leveling the playing field in a world dominated by corporate giants. Her slides showed growth, 10,000 users, 300% revenue increase in a year. She didn't mention the attack. She didn't need to. Her confidence sold it. When Rebecca Chen, Venture South's sharp-nosed managing partner, leaned forward and said, "We're in $500,000, 0 cents," Emily's team had erupted in the hallway. Emily only nodded, her smile tight. The money was validation, but it was also a target on her back. That night, she'd bought the Tesla, not for flash, but for freedom. Its silent power was her quiet triumph, a symbol that she'd clawed her way out of the Harper's shadow. Now that triumph felt fragile. The SUV was still behind her, its headlights a constant threat. Emily cut through Dilworth, past craft breweries and bungalows, the streets narrowing. She needed a plan. Her phone buzzed again. 3 missed calls from her mother, a text from Priya. Servers are acting weird again. Call me?" Her stomach dropped. Another attack? Or a distraction? She pulled into a crowded parking lot near Freedom Park, the SUV slowing but not stopping. She parked, her hands shaking as she dialed Priya. "What's happening?" "Glitch is in the user database," Priya said, her voice tense. "Not a full attack, but it's targeted. Someone's poking us, testing our defenses." "Lock it down. Call Marcus. She hesitated, glancing at the SUV idling across the lot. "I'm dealing with something." "Am you okay?" Priya's worry cut through the static. "Fine. Just handle it." She hung up, her eyes on the SUV. Its driver was a shadow, unmoving. She couldn't wait them out. She needed to move. Emily restarted the Tesla and peeled out, heading toward Noda. The SUV followed, but she had an edge now, the Tesla's speed and her knowledge of Charlotte's back streets. She lost them at a sharp turn near the Sugar Creek Greenway, her heart hammering as she parked in an alley behind a mural-covered bar. She sat there, breathing hard, the silence deafening. Who was doing this? The rival firm? Williams, Crone, or someone new, smelling blood after her takeover? Her mind flashed to the black envelope. Its contents were her trump card. Acquisition papers, proving ConnectSphere had bought Harper Innovations in a hostile takeover. She'd spent months orchestrating it, using Venture South's investment and her own savings to secure a controlling stake. The deal was airtight, brokered through a shell company to keep her name off the radar until the last moment. William hadn't seen it coming, no one had. But what else was in the envelope? A single USB drive tucked into a hidden flap. On it, the encrypted files she'd found on her father's server. Proof of his embezzlement, tax fraud, and shady deals with offshore accounts. She hadn't used it yet. It was her insurance, her final weapon if William fought back. The thought of it made her smile. But it was a cold, fleeting thing. She wasn't safe. Not yet. The Father's Day barbecue had been her first Harper family event in 3 years. She'd stopped attending after moving out at 18, her absence barely noticed. But this time, she'd texted the family chat, "I'll be there." No one replied, not even Sarah, whose silence stung the most. Emily had gone anyway, the black envelope in her purse, her Tesla gleaming in the driveway of the Myers Park mansion. The backyard was a circus of wealth, caterers serving shrimp skewers, a jazz trio playing under string lights, neighbors and business associates mingling. William held court by the grill, his laughter booming. Ethan, now 32, schmoozed with real estate moguls, his Rolex catching the sun. Noah, 26, fresh off an NFL tryout, flexed for a gaggle of fans. Sarah flitted about, refilling drinks, her eyes avoiding Emily's. Emily sat at a picnic table, sipping iced tea, the envelope burning a hole in her purse. William spotted her and smirked. "Look who crawled back. What's it been, 2 years? 3? Ethan chuckled, clapping her shoulder too hard. "Yeah, sis, Where's the art degree? Still doodling? Noah, tossing a football, grinned. Bet she's here for Dad's leftovers. The mockery was familiar, but Emily didn't flinch. She smiled calmly, her eyes locked on William's. Why was she so calm? Because she knew what they didn't. She'd spent a decade building her empire in the shadows while they basked in their own light. She wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. She was their reckoning. William raised a glass, his voice carrying over the crowd. To Ethan and Noah, the future of Charlotte, my boys, making the Harper name proud. The guests cheered. Emily stood, her movements deliberate. She walked to William, pulling the black envelope from her purse. Happy Father's Day, she said, placing it before him. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the noise like a knife. She turned and walked out, ignoring Ethan's confused, "What's that?" and Noah's scoff. She slid into the Tesla, started the engine, and waited, her eyes on the rearview mirror. Inside, William opened the envelope. His shout echoed across the yard, a raw, guttural sound. "Emily!" She drove away, the family's screams fading behind her. Ethan stammered, "How did she do this?" And Noah's, "She's dead to us," were music to her ears. William's face, pale as he read the acquisition papers, was her victory. Now, hiding in the Noda alley, Emily checked her phone. A new text from an unknown number. "You think you've won? Harper's allies are coming for you." Her blood ran cold. William's network was vast. Old money investors, tech moguls, even politicians. If they were mobilizing, she was in deeper than she'd thought. She drove to her apartment, a loft in a converted textile mill, its windows overlooking Charlotte's glowing skyline. She double-checked the locks, her laptop open to ConnectSphere's dashboard. Priya had texted. "Servers stable, but we're still being probed. Marcus says it's sophisticated. Be careful, Em." Emily poured a glass of cheap bourbon, her mind racing. The takeover had been her checkmate, but the board wasn't clear. William wouldn't go quietly. His allies, men like Richard Vance, a venture capitalist with a reputation for ruthlessness, or Senator Claire Hodges, who owed William favors, could crush ConnectSphere if they wanted. And the rival firm, still identified, was circling like a shark. She opened her safe, pulling out the USB drive from the envelope. Its files were her leverage, but using them would mean war, not just with William, but with his entire world. She hesitated, then plugged it into her laptop. The screen filled with spreadsheets, emails, bank records. One name caught her eye: Vance Capital. Richard Vance had funneled money to William's offshore accounts, tying him to the fraud. If Vance was behind the cyber attacks or the SUV, this was personal. A knock at her door made her jump. She grabbed a kitchen knife, her heart in her throat. "Who's there?" "Nan, it's me," Sarah's voice trembling. Emily opened the door, knife still in hand. Her mother stood there, eyes red, clutching a purse. "You shouldn't be here," Emily said, her voice flat. "It had to come." Sarah stepped inside, her hands wringing. "Your father, he's furious. He's calling everyone. Vance, Hodges, the board. They're saying you've betrayed the family." Emily laughed, cold and sharp. "Betrayed? He betrayed me my whole life. You saw it, Mom. You let it happen." Sarah flinched, tears spilling. "I tried, Em. I was scared. He controlled everything." "Save it." Emily turned away, her chest tight. "Why are you here?" Sarah pulled a folded paper from her purse. "This was in William's office. I took it before he could shred it." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "It's about you." Emily unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning it. It was a contract dated a week ago between Harper Innovations and an unnamed firm. The terms were clear: sabotage Connexsphere, discredit Emily Carter, and secure Harper's legacy. William's signature was at the bottom, alongside another, Richard Vance. Her blood boiled. William hadn't just ignored her, he'd actively tried to destroy her. The cyber attacks, the SUV, the threats, they were his orders. He knew, she whispered. He knew I was coming for him. Sarah grabbed her arm. Em, you have to run. They're planning something worse. I heard William on the phone. He said you wouldn't make it to the next board meeting. Emily pulled free, her mind racing. The board meeting was in 3 days, her first as Harper Innovations' new CEO. If William's allies were plotting, she'd be walking into a trap. But running wasn't an option. She'd fought too hard, bled too much to back down now. Get out, she told Sarah, her voice steel, and don't come back. Sarah sobbed, but Emily didn't waver. She locked the door behind her mother, her eyes on the USB drive. It was time to fight dirty. The next 72 hours were a blur of strategy and survival. Emily moved to a safe house, a friend's condo in Ballantyne, leaving her apartment empty. She and her team fortified Connexsphere's servers, Marcus leading a counter-hack to trace the rival firm. They hit pay dirt. The attacks were linked to Vance Capital, routed through a shell company in Delaware. Emily smiled grimly. Vance was William's attack dog, but she had the leash now. He leaked snippets of the USB's files to X, anonymous posts tagging Charlotte's business reporters. By morning, headlines screamed, Harper Innovations embezzlement scandal. William's allies scrambled, their denials drowned out by speculation. Vance's stock plummeted. Senator Hodges issued a vague statement distancing herself. Emily watched it unfold from her laptop, her team cheering as Connexsphere's user count spiked. The chaos was her shield. But danger loomed. The SUV had reappeared, spotted near the co-working space. Priya reported a break-in attempt at their server room, thwarted by new security. Emily hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Torres, to dig into Vance's moves. Torres texted her at 2 a.m. Vance is meeting William tonight. Warehouse in West Charlotte, be ready. Emily didn't sleep. She drove to the board meeting in her Tesla, the USB in her pocket, Torres's warning in her head. The Harper Innovations office, a glass tower in Uptown, buzzed with tension. Employees whispered, avoiding her eyes. The boardroom was a battlefield. William at one end, his face a mask of rage. Vance beside him, his smile oily, and 10 other directors, their loyalties unclear. Emily walked in, her head high. Good morning, she said, her voice carrying. Let's discuss the future. William slammed his fist on the table. You're no CEO. You're a traitor. This takeover is a sham. Vance leaned forward, his eyes glinting. Miss Carter, you've made enemies you can't handle. Step down, or we'll make this ugly. Emily smiled, pulling the USB from her pocket. Ugly. Let's talk about ugly. She plugged it into the projector, the room's screen filling with William's offshore accounts, Vance's signatures, emails plotting her ruin. The board gasped, chairs scraping as directors leaned forward. This, Emily said, is why Harper Innovations failed. You trusted a thief. She pointed at William. And his lapdog. She nodded at Vance. William lunged to his feet, his face purple. You'll pay for this, Emily. Security burst in, summoned by Priya, who'd been watching via live stream. William and Vance were escorted out, their shouts echoing. The board, stunned, voted to ratify Emily's leadership. Connexsphere's valuation hit $10 million 0 cents that afternoon, her name in every tech headline. Emily drove away from the tower, the Tesla's windows down, Charlotte's skyline glowing. Rumors of retaliation swirled. William's allies weren't done, but she didn't care. She saw her reflection in the window, no longer the forgotten daughter, but a woman who'd burned an empire to build her own. Connect Sphere was her freedom, her proof that she was enough. She pulled over near Lake Norman, the water shimmering under the moon. Her phone buzzed. A text from Torres. Vance is fleeing the country. William's under investigation. You're clear. She exhaled, tears pricking her eyes. Not for them, but for the girl who'd once begged for her father's love. Emily opened her laptop, typing a new post for Connect Sphere's blog. To every underdog, every dreamer ignored, your time is coming. Build your empire. Burn what holds you back. She hit publish, her heart full. The road stretched ahead, endless and hers. She started the Tesla, the hum of its engine her anthem, and drove into the night. A queen in her own story, unstoppable,